Coming to you live from the Interaction Media Studio in Morgantown, welcome to Positively, West Virginia. I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Today we have a very special episode for you guys. We're visiting live in the studio with Mr. Sean Frisbee. He's the founder and president of Vertx Partners in Morgantown, West Virginia. Sean, welcome to the studio today. Welcome to Morgantown.
I am super excited to be here, Jim. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dig into that, I want to talk a little bit about our mission here at Positively, West Virginia. Every week we talk with West Virginia business leaders and share their success stories with people just like you in West Virginia and indeed across the country. Since 2017, our goal is to bring you encouraging and inspiring business stories each week from right here in the Mountain State. We believe that by encouraging others with the possibilities that entrepreneurship and small business ownership can bring, we can help change the direction of West Virginia and help keep our young people here in the state. We just love telling these stories, and quite frankly, not a lot of people ever get to hear about. And our hope is that we help you guys to realize that you don't have to leave West Virginia to find great business opportunities. They're right here in our state. We want to encourage people to stay here or come here and build a great company, or even move back. If you've left West Virginia, move back here to West Virginia and be a part of this amazing small business culture we have right here in our state. All of our guests are people who are actually getting that done day in and day out. And I'm convinced that we can all learn from their experiences, and most importantly, I think, their stories. Over the past several years, we've produced close to 300 episodes, and Positively West Virginia is now a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can learn more about our mission of promoting small business and entrepreneurship in West Virginia at positivelywv.com. Our guest once again today is Sean Frisbee. He's the president and founder of Vertx Partners in Morgantown. Sean, welcome once again. Thanks for being here.
We're so excited at Vertx to be here, and our mission's a whole lot similar to what you're doing.
We're going to learn about that. We're going to dive into that. If you guys don't know, Sean Frisbee is a retired Air Force colonel. He founded Vertx Partners in 2021, just this year, to solve problems for the U.S. Air Force while bettering the economy of West Virginia. He's the former president and CEO of the WVU, West Virginia University Alumni Association, and once was the systems program director for the Pentagon's F-22 Raptor program. That's pretty awesome stuff, and I want to learn more about that as well. Sean brings a veritable wealth of knowledge in cooperative know-how to Vertx's mission of transforming West Virginia into a powerhouse for the national defense industry. We invited Sean Frisbee on the show today to talk about Vertx Partners, to share their story, and to talk about the business he's leading right here in West Virginia. Sean, again, thanks for being with us. And before we go any further, thank you for your military service. We appreciate that. Take a minute, Sean, and tell us a little bit about Vertx Partners.
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to grow the number of jobs, the number of companies, the number of people who are supporting national security, and trying to grow the federal marketplace in West Virginia. There certainly is a need for this. West Virginia needs to get their fair share of DOD dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen this work in other states. And so we're working closely with the United States Air Force and helping to identify entrepreneurs and researchers, small businesses, those who have innovative solutions, and matching those solutions with challenges that the U.S. Air Force and DOD have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. Well, Sean, talk a little bit about how you got started in Vertx. You just started in 2021. Talk a little bit about the impetus for how do you start a company, and why did you start this thing?
Yeah, so this was a very unusual situation. I had actually helped build a similar program in Ohio back in 2013, 2014.
Wow, okay.
The U.S. Air Force discovered that there were a lot of technologies, there were a lot of companies out there that they didn't know about. There was a lot of research going on at higher education institutions that they didn't know about. And so I helped start a program in Ohio called the Ohio Federal Research Network. And that program turned out to be a very positive program for the Air Force. Now, I came back to Morgantown in 2015 to take over the WVU Alumni Association. And so I kind of, exited from there. But about 18 months or so ago, the Air Force called me up and said, hey, this program that you helped start was very successful in Ohio. We would like to expand into Appalachia. It's an area that is underserved in terms of solving Air Force and DoD problems. And we're wondering if you'd be willing to help us out with that. And so I'm partnered with Parallax Advanced Research in Dayton, Ohio on an Air Force contract. And here we are. And so we're focused in West Virginia right now and trying to find those entrepreneurs, the research at the higher education institutions and small businesses to solve Air Force problems.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned Parallax. They're based in Dayton. Well, of course, the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is in Dayton, Ohio. We don't have an Air Force base here in West Virginia. What makes West Virginia a great fit for this?
Well, in fact, because we don't have a place like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, that's one of the challenges. So when you're at a location where you have a lot of former military, a lot of defense contractors, a lot of retired civilians, and you're an entrepreneur, you tend to bump into these people all the time.
Yeah.
And
you're in the circle, basically.
You're in that circle. And that doesn't happen as much in places like West Virginia, in other areas, frankly, in Appalachia. Yeah. And so it can be daunting for a company to think about, how do I do business with the government? And you get on the websites and you try to maneuver your way through, and where do I even begin? All the acronyms, right? Yeah, we live in acronyms in the DoD. And so we're trying to help lower that bar. Mm-hmm. And we're helping identify these companies, these technologies, helping to match those to the needs of the Air Force, and then holding these companies' hand and walking them through the process. This is how you actually do this business. And the great part is, and this is what is really unique, is it doesn't cost the company anything to have that service done. The Air Force is paying us to do that, and which is a very unique opportunity. And so we're super excited. We think that there's some great opportunities in West Virginia, and we're only getting started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I want to rewind a couple of years. You grew up in upstate New York, but you came to WVU to study aerospace engineering, became involved with ROTC, and that launched your Air Force career. Talk a little bit about, kind of what brought you to West Virginia, and then what kind of brought you back here. I'm kind of curious about that.
I actually think that this is a great West Virginia story.
Yeah.
So I'm a senior in high school and want to study aerospace engineering. And I have an ROTC scholarship, and we've gone around and looked at all the schools, and I had selected a school north of us that will remain unnamed, and had committed to going to school there. And my dad worked for the local gas company. He put in gas lines, and he came home one night, and he had been putting a gas line into this guy's house. And lo and behold, this individual was an aerospace engineering graduate from West Virginia University.
In upstate New York?
In upstate New York. And over the course of a day and a half, he convinced my dad to bring me to Morgantown.
That's great.
And so we came down, and we spent a couple of days, and it was really the people. It was the people in Morgantown that were just so friendly, so open, so willing to help me. As we drove out of the state on the way back home, I said, that's where I'm going to school. And that's how I ended up here.
That's awesome. That is a great West Virginia story. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that, Sean. So, fast forward now to where you're at. You're starting a company here, starting an entrepreneurial venture, which we love here at Positively West Virginia. What makes West Virginia the ideal place to start a company like this? You did it in Ohio, right? You had to start up. Why Morgantown? Why West Virginia?
Well, we have a lot of successful businesses. Many of them are in other industries, though. They might be in oil and gas. They might be in fintech. Of course, we're seeing a very significant increase in all kinds of tech in West Virginia.
Yeah, we've had a lot of them on this show, actually. Yep.
They may not be applying their solutions to DoD problems, but they are innovative solutions that need to be applied.
Problems.
They're solving problems,
yeah.
Or they're doing some work in cybersecurity for the FBI, or they might even be working with the Department of Energy and NETL. And so how can we shape those solutions in a way that can actually be applied to Air Force and DoD problems? And what we're finding is there's a lot out there. There's a lot more out there than you would think. There's a lot of high-tech work going on in West Virginia We just have to find those gems, as we call them, right? Where are those gems?
Yeah, exactly.
And West Virginia can be a leader in this area. And I think that there's some specific areas that we can lead in, and those are the areas we're focused in.
Yeah, Sean, thanks for sharing that. My dad was an Army guy. He passed away in 2020, but I always had an affinity for the military, and I always like to watch the military wranglings, the goings on. Okay, and it seems to me like technology is, obviously, is the future, right? And we talk about unmanned aircraft and drone technology and all these different swarms, like they call them, like drone swarms, and all this kind of stuff. It is tech, and it's probably going to be the wave of the future. Not necessarily boots on the ground so much, but technology. And how do we protect our country, right, through the U.S. military through technology? Is that kind of on point what I'm thinking?
Certainly, technology is key.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I will tell you, though, what makes the U.S. military the best military in the world are the people and the training together with the technology, right? So the technology is certainly an enabler. And as we say in the military, we're not looking for a fair fight here. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We're
not looking to level the playing field, right?
That we do not want to level the playing field. We want to make sure that our folks are taken care of, and so technology does play a very important role, and you find it across all the services. Yeah. So certainly the future will only continue to grow that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean, talk a little bit about. Well, let me back up, because I always like to ask this question of all of our guests. Your 30-second pitch for Vertx Partners. Talk a little bit about that. What is it you tell people you do in 30 seconds?
We find entrepreneurs, technologies, researchers, small businesses with innovative solutions to solve national security problems.
That's awesome. That was like 13 seconds, I think. I didn't time it, but it felt about 13 seconds. You got your pitch down. That's great. What would you say is the thing you're most excited about Vertx Partners right now?
We are seeing some areas that we think that West Virginia could be leaders in, and could really reshape the state. Yeah. And especially reshape some areas of the state that have been hardest hit. For example, the southern coal fields. And as we look out there and look at some of for example, the advanced carbon material research that is going on, and some of the companies that are focused in materials, we think that West Virginia could really play a leading role in those areas. And if you think about it, it's not just making the materials, but then you have all of the downstream things. You've got all of the advanced manufacturing, which we are already really good at. We're already good at that.
Making stuff.
we are good at making stuff, and we're good at making stuff in a high-tech manner. Yeah. And so we really think that this area of advanced carbon materials could be something that could be an economic cluster for West Virginia, all the way from the raw materials, carbon ore, i.e. coal, right?
Exactly.
Through coal tar pitch and composites and other advanced carbon materials into the manufacturing of end products. And so that's one area, for example, that we think that we could really do a great job in West Virginia. Yeah.
So what's the geographic area that Vertx Partners serves? Is it primarily West Virginia? I mean, you mentioned the Pentagon and Washington, D.C. Talk a little bit about the area where you're really focusing in on.
Yeah, so let me throw an acronym at you. Our AOR, our area of responsibility, is Appalachia.
Yeah, okay.
And so if you think about the area that the Appalachian Regional Commission covers, actually from Western New York, my town in New York where I grew up in is in Appalachia. On the northernmost end, clear down to Georgia. Yeah. And so that's our AOR. Yep. This year, we are focused in West Virginia, and a lot of what we're doing is we're proving out the kind of the processes that we're going through. Yeah. So we're kind of testing the waters. We're focused in West Virginia. We will always focus in West Virginia. Over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, we'll expand out through the border states.
Yep. So in 2021, you started this company. How many team members do you have on the team now?
Yeah, we're a small team.
Small team.
So we have there's 8 of us right
Okay,
now on the team, and we'll grow a few more perhaps. Okay, but it's going to be a small business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I envision the model is teaming with other companies, right? You said like Vertx is really there to connect and show the way, the pathway, right? Equipping folks.
We are primarily a connecting company. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to connect individuals and companies to other individuals and companies to partner. We want to be able to connect them to opportunities in the DoD. And oh, by the way, those opportunities, and I say DoD, so it might be with the Air Force, but it also might be with one of the prime contractors, a Lockheed Martin, a Boeing, an Aerojet Rocketdyne, a Raytheon.
And that's huge in West Virginia because this, we have a growing, thriving aerospace industry here in West Virginia, not only down in Huntington, but Bridgeport, West Virginia, and across the state. There's a lot of aerospace companies that are just some of the companies you just mentioned, right?
There are. In fact, Leidos moved their software factory here to Morgantown, several years ago. And so across the state, in fact, I think aerospace can impact the entire state. It's already impacting much of it. And I think as we get more into what's called advanced air mobility, which is using drones and electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for delivering goods and people, I see this impacting the entire state in a very positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I envision a day where we'll be sort of like the Jetsons flying around in personal vehicles. We won't have roads. We won't have to worry about potholes. We just have to worry about turbulence, I guess. I don't know.
That may be sooner than you think, actually.
You probably know stuff, right? I'm sure you do. That's pretty cool. So, Sean, what month did you guys start in 2021?
We really got going in June.
In June. So just a couple of months into this, what would you say has been your best business moment in just a few months?
Finding some great companies and having some conversations with companies that you just wouldn't believe that the work they're doing is going on in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Real experts. And this, by the way, is in every corner of the state. And finding those people in every one of those conversations that we have, I'll get on a Zoom, we'll have it scheduled for 30 minutes, and an hour and a half later, we're still going because what they're doing is so interesting. And they're really pushing the technology in their particular area.
Absolutely. And we see that every week with this show and our mastermind that we do each Friday. It is just amazing. It's overwhelming how much cool stuff is actually happening in West Virginia. You and I were talking before we started this interview about just chit-chatting about your experience with the Alumni Association and some of the attitudes that were kind of pervasive and not to be derogatory in any way, because this is positively West Virginia, but that is an attitude sometimes that pervades West Virginians, is that we're just West Virginia. We can't do that, or almost like an underdog mentality. And I don't know if we thrive on that sometimes, but talk a little bit about your experience with that and how you're overcoming some of those perceptions.
Yeah, I did notice that, Jim. When I first came back in 2015, it was very in front of me that there was this feeling of we're only West Virginia.
Yeah.
And I hadn't experienced that anywhere else that I've lived in, and I've lived all over the world. And I'm like, no, we're West Virginia, right? And so we do need to be positive. We need to be grateful for what has happened, and I know there's been a ton of challenges. But just the change since I came back in 2015 across the state is very, very significant. Yeah. Right now is the time.
Yes.
There is no time like right now to be starting companies. There's no time like right now to be growing your business. And we've got to take advantage of the momentum that is going on across the state.
Yeah.
So many good things in every sector, and just go after it.
We had on this on our mastermind program that I mentioned a couple of months ago, we had John Chambers on for an hour. It was really great conversation, and just to hear his insight. He's the namesake of the John Chambers College of Business and Economics at West Virginia University, and he's made his mark on not only in the United States but globally, especially in the technology sector. But he said something very similar to what you said, Sean. He said the window of opportunity for West Virginia is open. He said the pandemic has really opened that even wider because people, with remote work and people, the tech sector can work anywhere now. And he said, but that window, and he said, like you said too, entrepreneurship is open. Let's go, but you got to move because the window will not be open for very long. He said 3 years, maybe 4 max. And that was this summer. And so I feel like the clock is ticking, but it's guys like you that are out there starting companies, taking those chances, taking the risks, hiring people and going out and solving problems, taking it to the marketplace. And you're going to change the course of West Virginia. I mean, that's what's cool about it. The door's open, the window's open, however you want to view it, and you're doing it. And I think that's super cool. So since June of 2021, I don't know if you've had a worse business moment, but I always like to ask folks, what's been your worst experience so far?
Well, I don't think I've had a worse moment in this. I mean, I've had in other businesses, I've had a worse moment.
About Vertx.
But with no, it's really been fantastic so
you hit
far.
The ground running, and you guys are just rocking and rolling.
We hit the ground running, and we've got a great team. And we've got all the website up and social media is going. We're getting the word out. Being like on this podcast is a great way of getting the word out and really trying to uncover these companies. And so really it's been very, very positive. And we've had great reception at the state level, at the higher education level. I'm super excited to get engaged with all of the higher education institutions across the state. Of course, I know WVU well, having just come from there. But next week, I'm meeting with President Gilbert down at Marshall. And, of course, we've got Brad Smith coming in on January 1st. Is going to be exciting.
So cool.
Just so many opportunities. Next week, I'm going down to West Virginia State, and we're going to be meeting with the leaders down at West Virginia State and just really looking forward to just expanding and getting out to see and meet more people.
Absolutely. Sean, one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, and I have a young daughter, works for the FBI. My son-in-law and my daughter both work at the FBI here in West Virginia, Harrison County, finding opportunities for them so they don't have to leave the state. I want to have a new grandbaby, 14 and a half months old, and I want to see him every weekend, but guys like you, those relationships with Marshall, with West Virginia State, with WVU, that's going to encourage and give opportunities for these kids where they don't have to necessarily leave the state of West Virginia. I get if you want to go away for a couple of years, but come back as quickly as you can. To me, that's awesome, and that to me is the future of keeping our young people here. Is guys like you starting ventures, starting companies, providing those opportunities, taking the risks, and actually getting that done, not just talking about it. So I commend you for that. I want to mention just a second our sponsors for Positively West Virginia, and they include the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. The support we receive from these West Virginia companies allow us to highlight the incredible things happening in the great state of West Virginia in business. Today, our guest in the studio here in Morgantown is Sean Frisbee. Sean is the president and founder of Vertx Partners. Sean also is a retired Air Force colonel and the former president and CEO of the WVU Alumni Association. Sean, I want to get right back into it. What's the vision for Vertx Partners long term? What do you see as the vision?
Well, it's really focused on growing other businesses. It's a very interesting business because I'm less interested in growing Vertx and more interested in growing everybody else.
Yeah, that's cool. And that is unique.
Yeah, it's very unique. And so the vision is to really significantly increase the number of small businesses doing work for the DoD. So, for example, one of the primary approaches that a small business can take to get into doing work for the DoD is through what's called the Small Business Innovation Research Program.
SBIR.
SBIR.
Yes.
And so if you look at SBIRs, for example, this year, FY21, the Air Force has $919 million budgeted for that program. Okay. I looked up the data just before I came in to make sure that I had it right. But the latest SBIR data that's out there is 2020. And so there was $3.8 billion awarded in 2020 to small businesses through that program. $3.8 billion. West Virginia got $9 million.
Wow.
We're not getting our fair share.
Yeah, we got to get our fair share.
So let's take that $9 million to $90 million, right?
Wow. 10x.
Yeah, I mean, let's really ramp up. Let's really focus in the state. And I'll tell you, it's a great time because we now have a new NDIA, which is the National Defense Industrial Association. We now have a West Virginia chapter here. Great. And so we've got an active group that is really focused on the industry side for DOD. Let's really get that going in the state. And I think there's a lot of great ideas happening. I think that we can partner with, hopefully we're going to win some of these Build Back Better grants. Somebody here in the state, I know there were several that were put in. Hopefully some of those come through. We can partner with them and really start getting that going. And so the future of Vertx is really about taking that $9 million and let's turn that into $90 million.
Yeah, that would be a game changer.
It would be a game changer. Yeah. That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And great opportunities to build upon. I think about, the idea of coming together, collaborating, as opposed to butting heads and competing, and this is my turf and that's your turf or whatever. But I know you were influential in the Virgin Hyperloop announcement that came out a year ago or so, and getting those folks around the table. Talk a little bit about that experience and why the Virgin Hyperloop folks were interested in coming to West Virginia.
Well, I believe there were a lot of reasons, but I'll tell you one of the main reasons, and that is that West Virginia is small enough that we can really rally the troops. Yeah. We can bring people together. And I remember that first meeting. We're meeting at the WVU Alumni Association in our boardroom, and we had all of the key decision makers for the state in that one room. And Virgin had never seen anything like that. VHO had never seen anything like that. And we were able to really turn things on. And so West Virginians can join arms. And when they do, and they huddle up and they say, this is what we're going to go do, we can go make that happen. And that is key. Now, besides that, we've got great research going on at the institutions. We have a great place to live. I will tell you, the engineers that were out from Virgin Hyperloop were super excited to find out that they could work all day. They could drive 15 miles down the road and go mountain climbing and mountain biking and trail running and fly fishing and whitewater rafting and so on and so forth, right?
That's super cool, yeah.
So being able to work and play in the same location is really important. And I think it's increasingly important for the young generations today. Yeah.
Sean, just listening to you talk, I think about West Virginia people, because you did talk about the people, and whether it's the military or West Virginians, and I think that's what it comes down to here in our state. But we do have a propensity for coming together and working together to solve problems, and whether it's a flood cleanup, or it's building physical infrastructure, or working on the Virgin Hyperloop, there's no doubt we can do it, when we put our minds to it. And I think that's super cool, and a lot of untapped potential there for sure.
Well, being able to get everybody together, I'll tell you, the business summit that happens every year, put on by the chamber down at the Greenbrier, that is a great event. Now, we have not had a defense topic down there, and I'm hopefully going to change that.
That needs to change,
And hopefully we have that, because we want everybody to realize what is going on in the state and what we can grow into. But what a great opportunity. You get all these business leaders from across the state for several days down there with the political leaders, right? And everybody is working towards making West Virginia better.
Common goal.
Common goal.
Yeah, that's powerful for sure. So with Vertx Partners, what's one of the biggest challenges you guys are facing right now?
Right now, it's making sure that we're uncovering these gems.
Yeah.
So how do you go do this, and how do you scale it? I think the scaling is going to be an issue, because we seem to be uncovering more and more every single day. And what really has to happen is we have to have deep conversations with these companies and understand what they're doing. And then we need to get them connected to the right people in the DoD.
Yeah.
And there's people that have tried to do this using advanced computer tools, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. But what I discovered back in 2013 in Ohio, and what we're discovering now, is you just cannot duplicate that human interaction,
relationship,
the relationship, and I think for the entrepreneurs, that's a very important point. Our relationships are key. You've got to build positive relationships, and so how we scale that is something that I think we will struggle with as we go along and uncover more and more.
Absolutely, Sean. When I think about your company, Vertx Partners, and I may be sitting over here with a company that thinks, I'd like to get involved with that. The Department of Defense, the Air Force, that sounds pretty cool. I think I can bring some of these technologies I'm developing, or whatever it might be, a product. How does somebody like that's hearing this today get connected with Vertx, and what's that process look like?
The best way to do it is to go to our website. It's vertxpartners.org, and that's VERTX partners.org. And on there, on the homepage, there's a very short form to fill out. It will take about a minute to do, and that comes into our database and is highlighted to us. And then we will call that company, and we'll set up a time to have a conversation with that company, understand what they're doing, see where they're at. Maybe they have done business with the government, perhaps with another agency, or maybe they've done business with the Navy but never with the Air Force, right? Each company is a little bit different, and so we need to understand where they're coming from and then talk with them about what we can do to help them out.
And you help navigate that process, basically.
And we help navigate the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm curious, you've got vast military experience in the Air Force. You're leading a company. What's one of your principal leadership beliefs, if you will, that you'd like to share with us?
That you hire people that are different than you. You surround yourself with people that don't think just like you. And so diversity is key.
Yeah, that's really good.
You don't need to hire somebody that's just like you. In fact, you need to hire your opposite. And the
yin to the yang.
Yes, and so I think as these young leaders are thinking about building their companies, and they're interviewing people, and they're looking at who to bring on, they need to be looking for how to complement their own skill set. And sometimes that's tough, right? Because maybe that person, because they're so different from you, it might be a little scary. Yeah. But I think that's exactly what a company needs, is the diversity. If they don't look like you, they think differently than you, I think that it's a real positive.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff. What's one piece of advice, Sean, that you would give to a young entrepreneur? Maybe they've got a product or a piece of technology that they're developing. They haven't taken the leap or even a step toward entrepreneurship. What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's thinking about starting a business, starting a company here in West Virginia?
I think they need to find a mentor. I think a mentor can play a very important role. We learn about leadership, and we learn about entrepreneurship and that in several different ways. One of those ways is actually doing it. Yeah. One way is reading about it, and another is watching it and interacting with somebody else, and being able to learn the lessons from those who have gone before is critical in that journey, because it's hard. It's really, really tough. Yeah. And so if they can find a mentor, I believe that it would be very beneficial for them and help take them a long way.
That's awesome. Great advice. And that's kind of a lost thing these days, mentorship. I had going through my career, I never had a formal mentorship. My wife, Rebecca, she actually has a formal relationship with a mentor Like they have a compact, here's what we're going to meet once every 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about these subjects. And I think that's really cool. And that's great advice. You can't learn about golf by reading about golf. You have to go out and golf, you have
exactly
to take a
right.
couple swings and understand that, what it feels like to hit it in the water, and same thing with business. You can't just read about it in the book. You got to actually do it. And I love that advice, having a great mentor or even a couple of mentors. What's one thing you do every day that you think contributes to your success, Sean?
Exercise.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's been something that I've done my entire life. I think going in the military, it was something that was expected and it was the norm. And being able to, for me, I run. And so being able to get out on the road or on the trails without all the distractions that you have, all of that, the flood of things that come to us on our phones and emails.
Constant,
barrage. It's a constant barrage, right? And so being able to get out every day and kind of clear your mind, I think is really, really important. Yeah. And so that's how I do it.
That's great. I love it. And I think that is that's something we all could do more of. I know myself especially. What's one book you'd recommend for aspiring entrepreneurs, or even a podcast you're listening to right now?
Yeah, let me mention a couple places that an aspiring entrepreneur might think about going.
Yeah.
One is, I'm not sure if you know who Steve Blank is, but
I don't.
Steve is a professor out at Stanford in their entrepreneurship program, and steveblank.com is his website, I believe. He has a tremendous amount of resources out there, and he's been in this business for a long time, and you could literally spend days or weeks on his website. There's so much to read about, but that's one place that I would go.
That's great, yeah.
And from a book standpoint, I would look at The Business Model Generation. This book, Eric Osterwalder, I think is how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
What it does is it takes you through a process of thinking about your business, thinking about who your customers are, the value that you're bringing, what your business model is, who your partners are, what channels you're going to market, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so it kind of takes you in one piece of paper. And I know some of the entrepreneurial programs will use this book. I just think it's a great resource. And actually, even if you've been in business for a little while, it is a very good exercise to sit down and map that out for yourself and see if maybe you're missing something.
Might be a good review even.
It could be a great review. And I'm going to mention one more place that I just love. And by the way, I listen to this when I run oftentimes. But NPR is how I built this.
Oh yeah, Guy Raz.
Oh my gosh,
love it.
I love I love that podcast.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. We have a resources section on our website at positivelywv.com where all these resources you just mentioned will be listed, and folks can check them out right there with a click of a link. And so I just want to remind our listeners about that. Sean, we've covered a lot in this interview. Is there anything else that you think our audience would should know about your story, your company, or your personal story that we haven't covered? I
would just say thank you, Jim, for doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Being able to tell these stories. I really want to go down to Elkins and get donuts after listening to last week. But
great.
Hearing about these businesses that are up and they're running and they're doing great things in West Virginia is really good. And we need to stay positive, and we need to take advantage of this innovation window that is open, this window of opportunity, and just really drive, hold hands. Let's bring it in. Let's huddle up. Let's figure out how to do things. But telling these stories and allowing people to hear and be motivated by those who are out there doing that, I think it's a tremendous service for all West Virginians. And by the way, I'll bet you $1 that we've got West Virginians that don't live in West Virginia that are listening to this, listening to your podcast, and are thinking to themselves, all right, how do I go back home?
Let's go back, yeah.
And we
come back. We need them.
We need them too.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. That's awesome. Sean, as we close out our time here, how can folks learn more? You gave your website. We're going to give you an opportunity to do that, plus we'll have links on that. learn more about Vertx or even get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, really, our website is the best spot. At Vertx Partners on Twitter and Facebook is a great place, and also LinkedIn. I'll tell you, LinkedIn has been a very important channel for us. That is the business site. People pay attention to there. We've got articles on there. That's another great place. But when the folks fill out that form on our website, don't be surprised if they don't get an email or call from me. And somebody will be reaching out, but eventually I'll be talking to them and hearing what they're doing and seeing what we can do to help them out.
Absolutely. That's great. And we'll make sure, like I said, we have links to all that in the show notes section and on Facebook Live too. Sean, your service to the Air Force is Lieutenant Colonel Sean Frisbee. It's been a real honor to have you on the show. Again, thank you for your service. I think what you're doing with Vertx Partners is amazing. I think it really is opening the window of opportunity, like we've been discussing all show, for these folks who want to get involved with the military, the DoD, the Air Force. And I think what you're doing is really great, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. Positively West Virginia is brought to you by the State Journal, WVNews.com, and Interaction Media. As we continue on our journey to help share positive stories of companies and people doing amazing things all across West Virginia, just like my new friend Sean Frisbee of Vertx Partners here in Morgantown, our hope is that we in some way equipped you and inspired you with their business story. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on our show, drop us a line on our website at positivelywv.com. And of course, we appreciate your comments, your positive reviews, and encouragement as well. Thank you guys for that. And we love it when you guys share these episodes on your social media channels as well. And be sure to check out our weekly show, the PWV Business Mastermind, every Friday from 11 a.m. to noon, where we bring a panel of business experts from around the state to talk about a topic of the week and to help, really West Virginia small business leaders succeed. Positively West Virginia is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can learn more about our mission of advancing small business, entrepreneurship, and even nonprofits in West Virginia at positivelywv.com. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Hampton Hill, until next time, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.